Now, I don't know if you know a lot about soccer, about football, but what I do know is that managers tend to come and go. They change. They move on to what they think are greener pastures, bigger and better opportunities, and some get fired. What we're going to talk about today is the latter. We're going to talk about the sacking of Thomas Frank. Hey, what's going on, y'all? I hope life is good. And if it ain't, I hope it gets better. And hey, maybe this podcast will play a part in making that happen. So sit back, listen, hang a bit. Laugh with me, laugh at me. All that matters is you're here. This podcast starts right now. Enjoy. Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Blaze. I'm just somebody's dad figuring it out, and that's the name of this podcast. And listen, I appreciate the fact that you're listening to me because you could be listening to a whole host of other phenomenal podcasts. And yet you give me the time of day, evening, morning, night, whenever you're listening to this. It does not go unnoticed, nor does it go unappreciated. Guys, thank you so much for being here with me. Let's jump right on into it. But first, before we do all that, I'm going to get one thing straight right out the gate. I'm going to be general on most things. I'm going to be specific on a few. But regardless of what I say, I know guru boo-boo. Listen, you help me and I help you. Okay? And if at the end of it all, we're a bit better versions of ourselves, which I believe we can be, we're going to call that a W. Now, there's a team called Tottenham Hotspur. Some of you may be fans if you're listening. Now, I personally am an Aston Villa fan. It's up the Villa as always, forever and ever, 0121. You know them Villa boys from Aston, you know them ones. I'm not saying that Aston Villa is better than Tottenham. Well, yes, I am. But we ain't here to talk about Villa. What we are here to talk about is Thomas Frank, who was, up until this week, or this past week rather, the manager at Tottenham Hotspur. Now, for those of you who don't know much about soccer, and I don't think that you need to fully understand everything to get what I'm saying, I am going to break down a little bit of terminology as I go through, just to catch up to speed for those of you who are completely clueless as to what the heck I'm talking about or who I have just mentioned. Tottenham Hotspur is a football club, or a football team, if you will, an organization in North London. They play in the English Premier League, or the EPL, as it may often be called. They are a team that has a history of winning things here and there, but it's been quite some time since they've won anything. There are multiple different, tournaments within the league itself, and they haven't won any of those in a while. Whether it be the FA Cup, the Carabao Cup, or the Premier League. They have, however, recently won the Europa League. It's all of Europe competing, or at least those who qualify, to win a trophy. There's the Champions League, which is the pinnacle, the big one, but the Europa League is the second tier, but it's still important, because dang it, if you haven't won anything in a while, any trophy is a good trophy, right? Now, in addition to not having a history of winning a ton, they have had some volatile relationships between management and the coaching staff. But I want to define management. I'm talking upper management, ownership, if you will. And plenty of coaches have come there and decided, you know what, I'm leaving. Thomas Frank was one of those who didn't get a choice to leave. He was fired. I'm going to talk about a couple things that I took from him being hired and from him being fired. Now, y'all soccer heads, football heads can go ahead and get into all the details, whether or not he should have been fired. Was it the right time? Well, he did this and this, and this is the form he was in, and blah, 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 blah. I ain't trying to hear not damn bit of that, because that ain't what I'm concentrated on. I don't care. I'm not a Tottenham fan. Y'all do with that what you will. But I got four things, amongst many, that kind of stick out to me. And I guess I'll take it this way. Number one, environment is key to success. Let me help you with a little bit of history so that you can understand why that's one of my first takeaways. Thomas Frank is a coach that coached a team named Brentford before he went to Tottenham. At Brentford, he was in an environment that was organized, structured, supportive, cohesive, unified. He had ownership that backed him as best they could monetarily. But in terms of his play, his selections, they gave him some autonomy to make some decisions because he saw the team every day. He understood the team, its needs, its shortcomings, and its advantages that maybe they had versus another team. He had players that had decided, we're going to follow you, coach. And for those new ones coming in, they had a system in place that helped to integrate new players that may have been transferred from other teams, so that there wasn't this huge lag time from a new incoming player getting up to speed and being able to be effective on the pitch, the field. He had all of that. And then he went to a club where the environment was toxic, to say the least, where the environment was one that was disorganized, lacking identity, probably still feeling a lot of the after effects of having won a tournament, yeah, and then finding themselves dang near relegated. Now, for those of you who don't know what relegation is, it's where you go from whatever tier of sport you're at to the lower tier. Think going from major leagues to AAA. Think going NBA to G League or G League to semi-pro, that sort of thing, right? Relegation is if you're the bottom three of the entire table being the list of teams, then you're getting relegated. And they were pretty darn close, Tottenham were. That has a bit of hangover sometimes. Because how can you truly celebrate winning a trophy knowing that you were about to be a team that won Europa League, right? And then you would be relegated. It's just bad. And he also went to an environment where the locker room, meaning the players themselves, were not cohesive. He had big egos that were not really ready to come together and lessen their ego. And here's what I know. You can feed your ego, you can feed your family, but you ain't finna feed both. So environments are key. Because I believe that Thomas Frank is a good coach. And in the right environment, Thomas Frank succeeded. He has a resume that shows as much. But he went to a different environment where the expectation, I think, is ridiculous. You have sucked as a team for quite some time, Tottenham, but there's still this expectation that, well, we're Tottenham Hotspur. Y'all about as bad as Man United. Talking about, we're Man United. You ain't supposed to be nowhere except for the level at which you play with the games you win and the games you lose. That's where you're supposed to be. Your name does not mean anything. Matter of fact, let me go ahead and tell you it this way. Your past does not determine your future, but your past does not give you some divine right to the future you want. Come on, somebody. Hope you heard me. Run it back if you need to replay it for yourself. Thomas Frank went into an environment where I don't think he was ever going to succeed. And so now he's no longer managing at Tottenham Hotspur. Here's another takeaway I had. The grass ain't always greener. Sometimes it's just AstroTurf. Well, what does that mean? Sometimes it looks better, sounds better, seems better than it actually is. I will tell you this way. If you're an athlete, whether you are barefoot or have cleats on, you step onto grass versus AstroTurf, you can feel the difference. But from a distance, they both look really, really green. They take care of grass in ways that make it look phenomenal. I mean, the brightest, boldest green, it's just well manicured, just like AstroTurf. But when you get close up, you know what it is. Thomas Frank had himself set up at Brentford and decided to go to Tottenham. And I'm certain that it probably looked like a really good opportunity, a chance to challenge himself, a chance to play with what one would assume would be better quality players. And I think when he got over there and he actually opened them doors and really saw what was what, my man found AstroTurf. And not AstroTurf that was placed on top of like a nice soft cushiony mat that was placed on something else to make sure that you're safe. No, no, no. We're talking AstroTurf on top of concrete. That's what he found at Tottenham. The Tottenham fans might be listening to this saying, my God, why are you dissing us so hard? I'm not. This is stuff y'all say. Y'all can't stand y'all club because y'all know y'all club is on some nonsense. I'm not saying that you are the worst team in the world, but it ain't good. And I'm pretty sure Thomas Frank got a better understanding of what he was walking into and realized maybe the grass ain't always greener. In life, there are going to be things that are presented to us, but what we've got to do is take a moment to evaluate where we are. Are we happy where we are? Because dang it, if you're happy where you are, don't move. If you've got what you want and got what you need where you're at, there is nothing that says in order for you to be considered ambitious, successful, forward thinking, progressive, that you got to go do something else, move somewhere else, pursue something else. Dang it, if you are winning where you're at, keep winning. I am not generationally tied to my team, Aston Villa, and I have never lived nor been to the UK, to England in more specific terms. And so I don't know what it's like to be enamored by the past successes or, the past proud, bold, big descriptions of a club. Because I'm certain that maybe over in the UK, Tottenham at one point was seen as this massive club that had great things going on and was moving forward, and the name began to carry weight. Maybe that's what drew Thomas Frank out. Maybe he was bored where he was. I don't know. Maybe it's because, two of their really good players got taken or transferred rather to another team. And so I'm not certain what prompted him to leave, but I got a pretty good feeling he thought he was going to be running through fields of green barefoot and feeling the fuzzies all on his toes and just, oh, it's going to be so great. And that man got over there and said, what is this plastic? Now, the third takeaway I have is buy-in is important for a team to progress and move forward. And if the folks you have with you decide not to buy in, you got to do one of two things. Either get a better idea about what it is you're selling, potentially sell another product, or get a different customer, aka change your team. Guys, I don't know where you may necessarily be at in life in terms of your work and your career. I've been in corporate America. I can tell you right now, I have seen sales teams that have bombed, and I've seen sales managers get fired because there wasn't buy-in. I've played as an athlete on a multitude of different teams in different sports. If you do not buy into the coach's philosophy, you will lose. Why? Because the coach's philosophy, the coach's way of doing things can work if everyone is bought in. But if you got one person, two people, three people who've just decided, nah, I'm good, then it is not unlike a house of cards. Take away enough cards, the whole thing falls. Let me get in close when I say this. There are players in Tottenham Hotspur's dressing room that are making a lot of money. And that's relative to the common everyday person. And also, they making a lot of money just for being football players relative to their counterparts, their peers. And they're good players. You don't get to that level without being good and being very confident. But you take a lot of confidence and throw some money on it, you might get a lot more ego than you expected. So now you got a locker room full of egos that are looking at Thomas Frank and are deciding whether or not they're actually going to do what it is he's saying to do. And I got a pretty good feeling not everyone bought in. And I'm going to say this, you can feed your ego or you can feed your family, but you can't feed both. And way too many of them players decided, my family can starve. Because you do understand winning the Premier League, finishing in top 4, top 5, they have monetary benefit for the players as well as the organization. But you let your ego get in the way, aka you don't buy in, you might find yourself in a less than favorable situation. That's in life, that's in sports, that's in business. In order for you guys as a group to move forward, you gotta buy in. And then lastly, and I guess I don't necessarily know if this is the most important, but I think it's probably the simplest to be said and probably has the most impact because it can be felt in so many different areas. In leadership, it ain't your fault, but it's your fault. Thomas Frank went into an environment that was unorganized, chaotic, unsettled, had no identity, and was unsure of itself. Didn't even really know where it wanted to go, or knew where it wanted to go, but was unrealistic about how long it was going to take to get there. He had players with egos, some of which egos were so big, I'm certain they thought they knew better than he did. He went into a situation where maybe he thought it was going to be something different than what it was. And then he had to take what he had and figure out how to make something out of it. Didn't do too good a job, to be quite honest. But when you are in leadership and as a manager of a football team, don't nobody care about the fact that those 4 people are injured. That one has a stomach bug, so they're going to be out for these next couple of games. This one is a really young dude, and he's probably going to be really good in about 4 years. But he ain't ready to take y'all to where you need to go right now. Nobody cares about that. Nobody cares that you're not getting any money from the club to go out and get certain players. They don't care. Folks don't care because it's like Dr. John Maloney says, not by my hand, but in my lap. In leadership, it may not be your fault, but it becomes your responsibility. And if it don't get done, it's your fault. There's really no getting around that. And I think Thomas Frank, in those moments rather, when he sits down with himself, you better believe he's taking some serious responsibility. He has to, because you were placed in leadership position because they saw you in leadership position in another team and believed that those skills were transferable. Am I saying it's all on Thomas Frank? Not at all. I'm not saying it's all on you, parent, who's been placed in leadership position of your family, of those kids, or you, teacher, who's in a leadership position of your students. I'm not saying that you, individual, who's been placed in leadership position of any team, whether it be athletic, whether it be corporate, whether it be community-based, whether it be just the children's choir at your church or the usher board. It ain't gonna be your fault. Now maybe you gonna make some mistakes, but still, even when it's not your fault, you will be looked to as a leader, and because you are looked to as a leader, the buck stops with you. I don't necessarily know where Thomas Frank is going to go from here. I'd like to think he's going to go on to bigger and better things, but I can tell you right now, the sacking of Thomas Frank did not come as a surprise. The sacking of Thomas Frank opened my eyes to a couple of different things. Again, environment is everything in terms of success. Someone who gets put in a good environment can thrive. That same person who thrived in that good environment has the skills, goes to a poor environment, they might not make it. Number 2, the grass ain't always greener. It might be AstroTurf. Maybe you think something is really good over there. You better evaluate how awesome it is right where you're at. If you are happy where you're at, if you are winning where you're at, if you are content where you're at, and it is beneficial to not only you, but you being able to help others, absolutely stay where you're at. There is no need to move. Number 3, buy-in is important. It's crucial for a team to move forward and succeed. And if folks are not buying into what it is you're selling, you might need to change your product or change your customer. And 4, in leadership, it ain't your fault, but it's your fault. Love y'all. I'll holla at you. Hey everybody, that's our show. Thank you so much for taking the time to tune in. I'm somebody's dad, just figuring it out. Hopefully you got something from today's episode. Like it, share, subscribe, get involved in the comments, tell a friend to tell a friend. And until next time, smile a little bit more. Take care of yourself, stay safe, and I will see you on the next episode.